So you want to learn how to set up a virtual service using the NSX Advanced Load Balancer inside an NSX-T environment. Well, stick around. That's what we're going to cover. See you in a bit. Thanks for sticking around, everybody. So what we're going to do here, this is actually my fourth video on the NSX Advanced Load Balancer series. The first one, we just talked about what it was and talked about the architecture. Then the second one was deploying the controllers. The third one was setting up the NSX-T Cloud Connector. And right now, we're actually now going to set up a virtual service. So we're going to start load balancing, okay? So I always like to throw this out at this point. If this is kind of stuff you like, please subscribe to the channel. It does help me out. It does support the channel, and it's free. I also have super thanks enabled. If you really want to support the channel, you can do a super thanks. That's, again, totally up to you. But again, please subscribe to the channel. That does help out quite a bit. And for those of you that are already subscribed, hey, 2 thumbs up to you. Thanks very much. Let's jump into it. All right, let's get my screen here going. All right, so if you haven't watched the other videos, watch the other videos to lead up to this. This is all a part of my NSX Advanced Load Balancer / AVI Networks stuff, right? So you might think you go into NSX and do this. You don't do that anymore. You don't do any of this configuration within, you don't configure any of the virtual services or any of that stuff within the NSX user interface anymore. You have to go to the NSX Advanced Load Balancer interface. So if I go into, well, right now we're in NSX, so let's just take a quick look at my networking. So my topology. So when we did the cloud connector, I got my tier 1 gateway here. Behind the tier 1 gateway, you see I got a couple of segments: web segment, app, and database. There's a few other ones here. On my web segment, well, guess what? There's 2 web servers there, okay? There's 2 VMs. Come on. There's 2 VMs in there. I don't know why it's not. There we go. Now it's expanding. Web 1 and Web 2. Their IPs are 172.16.10.11, 172.16.10.12, which you'll see as we go through. Okay. I also, part of the cloud connector, I actually set up 2 more overlay networks here. One is for the Advanced Load Balancer management. So remember, my Advanced Load Balancer, the service engine, is going to have 2 NICs. One for the management network. Okay, so this network has to be able to reach the the NSX Advanced Load Balancer controller cluster, and then it has the data plane network. That's the network that your data goes through, right? So that's where the virtual IP will be, all that stuff. That's where the customer network traffic flows through. Okay, so I got those 2 set up. I set up my cloud connector, and away we went. The other thing is when we set up our cloud connector. So here's the NSX Advanced Load Balancer interface. Again, I just typed in I only got 1 controller. Yeah, okay. You know, I'm in a restricted environment, so or limited environment, I should say. So I'll connect it to my 1 controller. If I go into infrastructure clouds, you'll see I created that NSX Cloud Connector, and it's green, which is good. I did that in the last video. Okay, so enough of that. Now, one thing I did not show you in that last video, when we set up this cloud connector, let me see if I could show it to you here. NSX. No, it doesn't show it to me here. One of the things it asked for when I set it up is a content library. Okay, so I had to create a content library, and I showed you that in the previous video. Let's take a look at that. Once I set up that cloud connector, let's go into here, into vSphere. I'm now in my vSphere environment. Content libraries. There's my NSX Advanced Load Balancer content library I created. I demoed that in that last video. And notice over here, there's an appliance there, Ubuntu, whatever. That's the service engine. So when I created that cloud connector, the controller cluster said, oh, okay, I'm going to talk to vCenter, create that image for the service engine. So now when the service engine gets deployed, it's going to be deployed by this content library, okay? So let's jump into this. So let's go into the NSX Advanced Load Balancer. Let's go into, so a couple things I need to do first before I forget, right? Just let me make sure I remind you here. Yeah, I just want to make sure I showed you the content library. So a couple things I have to do first is if I go into cloud resources, you'll see networks here. And under my select cloud, there's my NSX cloud. So under here, you see my network profiles. Here's my Advanced Load Balancer data plane and my Advanced Load Balancer management. These are the overlay segments that I selected for my management network for my service engines and the data plane network for the service engines. What I need now to do is go in there and specify like IP ranges. So let's do my management one first, right? Actually, yeah, let's do my management one first. Again, remember the management interface on the service engine needs an IP. I could enable DHCP if I wanted to. If I had DHCP set up on that segment, it can grab it from there, right? I don't want, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give it static. I'm not going to play with IP6, but you could have enabled that. So let me go in and add in, this is my management. So I'm going to go add a range. So what's my prefix here? This is management 172.16. My management is 70.0/24. I'm going to add a range now, 172.16.70.10 to 172.16.70, management, yes, it's 70.20. There we go. And I'm going to save this. So right now that's my management network, and it's so what's going to happen is when my service engines get deployed, its management interface will get an IP from this range I actually just specified. So it'll do the .10 first for the first one, the .11 for the next, so on and so forth. So I could have done a bigger range if I want to, but for my demo, I don't care. I got to do the same thing for the data plane network. This is where the client data flows through. Okay, so let's go and specify a range there. Again, I could use DHCP if I wanted to. If I had that on my segment, I don't. I could use IP6. I don't care about IP6. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to add in a subnet now, and I'm going to put in the subnet prefix. So this is my data plane, 172.16.80.0/24, and then I'm going to add in the range, 172.16.80.10, let's say, 172.16.80.20. Again, I could add more if I wanted to, and I'll say save. Another thing I got to do, but I got two interfaces connected to my Tier 1 gateway. I have to tell it how to get back to the web servers, right? So I'm going to go in here and specify, I'm going to edit my Tier 1 gateway here, because that's what it's sitting behind. I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to go in and add a static route. I'm going to give it a default route saying 80.0.0.0/0. That's saying default route. Go back to 172.16. This is my data, so this is 80.1. So make sure you use this network and not the management network, okay? So I'm going to save that, save it there. So I had to do that at first, okay, with my networks here. Now I'm ready to create a virtual service. Let's go into application, because that's really what it is. It's an application you're going to load balance. And notice over here I have virtual services, virtual service IPs, pools, and pool groups. I'm not going to talk about pool groups. Pools is basically your back-end servers that you pool together to load balance to. The virtual server, virtual IP, that's the IP address you're going to give. Again, if you watch my first video, this is the VIP, the virtual IP. This is the IP address that the customers come into. That's the one that they see. They don't see the server backend address. They see this one. And the virtual service is just that's the service, the application. So I can create these one at a time if I want to, or I can just do it all in one shot, which I'm going to do right now. So let's go into virtual services. I'm going to say create virtual service, and I can say basic or advanced. Let's learn how to walk before we run, folks. Let's go to basic setup. Now it's asking me what cloud. Remember, I created my NSX cloud, so I'm saying I want to go there. And then the VRF contacts, virtual router and forwarding contacts. Again, this is NSX-T, so everything's sitting behind this Tier 1 gateway. I'm going to pick that. And I click next. Now it's asking me for the name of my virtual service. Call it something that makes sense, like whatever your workload is. This is my SAP workload, or whatever the workload is. You may want to put its name in as the virtual service. I was going to say virtual service 1. Again, I don't got much of an imagination, right? Again, there's different application types. I could do load balancing. I'm just going to do port 80 on my web. Now it's asking me for the virtual IP. I don't have one. I never created one. See, there's nothing there, but I get the option to create one. So let's create one. So notice it gave it a name here, VS-1-VSIP, whatever. I don't like that name. I'm going to call it virtual IP-1, whatever. I call it something that makes sense. My virtual IP. I'd probably include the name of the app that this thing's load balancing for. It's going to the NSX Cloud. It's the Tier 1 contacts, so everything's sitting behind that Tier 1 gateway. I'm going to select my Tier 1 gateway here. And then it's asking me for the virtual IP. What IP address does do I want externally to use to connect to that? Now I could do I could do like ranges if I wanted to, but I'm just going to say I want to do a static address here. Okay. Actually, if I said auto allocate, I could pick a network for my virtual IP. I could actually have, again, ranges of IPs if I want to. Let's, again, learn how to walk before we run. I'm just going to do one static address, and I'm going to enter the address 10.10.10.10. All right. And I don't care about IP6 and stuff. I'm just going to leave this as such, and I am pretty much done at that point. So I just created the virtual service name. I gave it a virtual IP. I created that. Now it's asking me for what servers do I want to use? What do I want to load balance to? So I could type in IP addresses here, like 172.16.10.11, and I could add that, right? Notice it added it down here. 172.16.10.12 is my second one. And again, I could add that and added it down here as well. I could do it manually. I could also do IP groups if I got NSX, or look at this, NSX. Security groups. Kind of cool. NSX-T or NSX security groups. So I'm going to pick that, and I created one called web servers. If you don't know how to create a security group, watch my distributed firewall video, okay, on NSX. So great. I got my name, I got my virtual IP, I got my security group, and there's my web servers and all that. So great. That looks good. Let's save that, and let's go back over to here to virtual services, and you see it's red right now. So red's not good. Let's mouse over that, waiting for service engines creation. So this is my first virtual service. I don't have any service engines. It's deploying it, right? Now, notice over here under my, let's go to vSphere. In vSphere, you can see it. Like, notice this. Let's go into inventory here. Inventory. And you actually see it right there. There's one, it's deploying there right now. My NSX AVI service engine, whatever, okay? And there's another one that's deploying as well. So it's deploying too. Why is it deploying too? Let's take a look at that in a minute. Let's take a look at that now. Let's go back into AVI. Now, when I created that virtual service, it's right there. It automatically created this virtual IP for me, right? And because I went through and did it. I could have done that manually. It created also this pool for me as well, okay? And so here's the health of my pool. If I actually go in here to edit this, I actually should see servers. I actually have 2 servers in there. There's a lot of really advanced settings here, folks, that I didn't really cover. I'll probably do videos on separate pieces of those because we could spend a lot of time on this, but we're keeping it simple. I've got health monitoring set up. It's got a default HTTP health monitor. What that means is it doesn't just ping the server, the 2 web servers, 172.16.10.11 and 10.12. It doesn't just ping them. It actually goes and does an HTTP GET, and it's got to get a valid reply. So it's actually testing the, and you can put in different monitoring here if you want to. There's all kinds. I'm going to leave this alone. I'm going to cancel this. So this is deploying right now. It's deploying those service engines, right? And it's deploying it from the content library. This is going to take a little while to go, right? So while this is doing its thing, again, you'll see my virtual service. Again, it's red. Eventually, that will go yellow or green or whatever, okay? So why don't I pause the recording? We'll come back and see it get done, all right? See you in a bit. So we're back, everybody. We can see that when the virtual service is deployed. It was green before, it changed yellow. If I click on this little icon here, it just looks like it's analyzing it, it's checking things out. I don't have the fastest environment, so I'm getting penalized on performance here. But it's up and running. I got my virtual IP here. Let's go into vSphere. My 2 service engines are deployed. Beautiful. It took probably about 10 minutes or so in my lab environment. Again, I don't have the quickest lab environment. So great, my virtual IP is up. Let's open up a browser. Let me connect to Web 1, okay? So 172.16.10.11. So I'm just going straight to the web server, right? Boom, I hit it. So you can see there's the web page for it. Let's go to .12. Boom, you can see I got .12 there, okay? Let's go to the load balancer address now, 10.10.10.10.10. It's not going to work. It shouldn't work. Actually, it's probably cached from a previous one, 10.10.10.10. Yeah, so it's not going to work. See it kind of loading over here? This one's cached. Let's kill that. Why is it not working? All right. let me go into my VYOS router. So in my environment, I got my physical environment, and then it goes through this VYOS router. You can think of it as a physical router. It doesn't really matter. It's a VM. Then it goes through the tier 0, the tier 1, and then down to the web, okay? So my VYOS is kind of the boundary between my NSX environment and my real world. So you see it didn't work. Why is that? If I actually go into, let's kill this, let's try this out again. Let's go into my VYOS router, and I just got the default logins. And let's just change the font and stuff a little bit, folks, so we can see it a little bit better. Excuse me. Got a tickle in my throat all of a sudden. We'll go there. And for those of you who've been watching my videos, you know I like to change the background color just because that's the way I like to roll. And we'll go with that. And we'll say OK and apply. And there we go. There's my VYOS router. Now, if I type in show IP route, I see a bunch of routes here. I see 172.16.10 network, 20, that's my app, 30 is my database, 70 is the management for the SCs, for the service engine, 80 is the data plane for the service engines, and then whatever. I got management networks. Doesn't really matter. I got a bunch of other networks here. I don't see anything about the 10, 10, 10, 10 here, right? Why is that? Let's go. This is one thing I got to also do. Very common mistake. I'm going to go into NSX, and I got to go into my networking. I'm going to go to my tier 1 gateway, because that's where everything's sit behind. I'm going to go to edit settings. I'm going to go into route advertisement, and I'm going to say all load balancer virtual IP routes. I got to advertise those out. So I'm telling tier 1 to tell tier 0 about the load balancer virtual IP. Okay. Then I got to go to tier 0, edit tier 0, and then I got to go into my route redistribution here. And click on that, and I'm redistributing, I'm using BGP in my environment, okay? So I'm redistributing routes via BGP. If I was using OSPF, I'd just do the same thing, but in OSPF. So I'll go route redistribution. I'll edit this route redistribution that I have, and I'll click on my route redistributions here. Woo, a lot of clicks here, right, folks? And then I got to go in and tell it, hey, tier 0, and that's what this check mark is. Tier 0, when you learn when you learn about a load balancer virtual IP from tier 1, you need to advertise that out to the real world, right? In other words, to my VYOS router. So I'm going to say apply. I'm going to go add. I'm going to say apply. And I'm going to say save. A lot of clicks here, right, folks? There we go. Let's go into my VYOS router. Let's do the same thing. Boom, I now see 10.10.10 network. There we go. Let's go to here now. And let's do a reload. Come on, don't lie to me. It's there we go. Dot 12. Let's hit enter on that maybe a couple of times. If I can hit F5. There we go. See how it went to dot 11 there? Okay, so it was dot 12 and then it went to dot 11. I actually have a, actually let me show you something here. So here's my pool. Again, I'm probably getting a hit. Although it's that complaining about performance hit, whatever. Okay, but again, I don't have the fastest lab environment. If I see my pool here and I click on this, if I scroll down, what do I see? I see load balance algorithm is on least connection, and I could change this to round robin if I wanted to. So it's basically distribution. This algorithm is saying, hey, go to the server that has the least connections, right? So it's possible it could go from web 1 to web 2, or if I just pick round robin and save that, again, it could potentially go back and forth from web 1 to web 2. So right now it's on web 1 still. It's kind of hard to simulate this with, oops, I didn't want to do that. Yeah. So, anyways. Okay, so I'm going to, let's go back to that virtual IP 10.10.10.10. And you see I'm on dot 11. Let's hit control. It's still dot 11, still hitting dot 11. Let's fire up Chrome and see what it does. It may still hit that 10.10.10. Oops. Notice now I hit .12 because I said round robin, so I can go back and forth. I haven't done any like persistence type of thing, persistence based on source IP or whatever. So it's going to toggle back and forth. So that's basically it. I hope you found this beneficial. If you did like it or found it entertaining, just hit that thumbs up. I like that. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel and this is the kind of stuff you want, please support the channel by subscribing to it. Without subscribers, there's no content developers, right, folks? That's it. Leave comments down below. Let me know if there's something you want to see me do. Again, I have limited resources, but I'll try my best. I got more videos coming up. I'll probably do another one on service engines. That might be the next one. I'll have to see. I've got requests for vSAN. So anyways, thanks very much. Have a great evening. Bye now.